there's huge promise for this, because if you know what's going to happen tomorrow, you can better prepare for it. And looking at 8 to 40%, that's a huge amount of money that you'll be saving that you can invest in other places in your business.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Bradley Hartman. I'm excited to bring to you today my conversation with Dr. Kofi Asare as we talk about the emerging innovation that is digital twins. Now, for the last 12 months or so, I have heard about this idea of a digital twin, and I didn't know exactly what it was or how it was different from BIM, how it really tied into artificial intelligence and all the sensors that we are now putting into modern designs. And I often felt the more I read into this emerging technology, the more confused I got. So when I crossed paths with Dr. Kofi and understood his specialty was in digital twins, I was excited to talk to him, not only because, as you will hear, he's funny, he's smart, he's got an incredible background where he was a professional journalist and broadcaster of African League football games and World Cup games. So he has a whole sports background, which is really interesting. But in addition to that, he was really able to simplify and articulate what is and is not part of this digital twins innovation. And as I say on this episode, I think this whole digital twins conversation, it has a marketing problem. There's too many disparate pieces that go into it, and a lot of people are using these as buzzwords. If we're talking about the Internet of Things and machine learning and sensors and bidirectional data, and heaven forbid somebody says CPS, cyber physical systems, there's just too much. And brains start to slow down, confusion takes over, and we say, you know what, I think we're good. There's enough other things going on in our lives. I don't think this is important. My friend, the whole point of this episode is to reorient your thinking about that with Dr. Kofi Asare as our guide, because he is going to explain why not only is this a thing now, but I believe in the future it will be the thing. It'll be the convergence of all these technologies that will change the way we build and we think about building, the value we deliver to developers, and I believe single-family homeowners. And I believe this is going to be with us everywhere before we know it. My qualification to that, before we know it, I would say 12 to 16 years is what I'm looking at. But this is a really important conversation. So who is Dr. Kofi Asare? Well, he got his Bachelor of Science in Architecture, and he got his Master's of Architecture in Ghana. Then he went to Loughborough Uni. I don't know how to say that. I do believe it's Loughborough. He got another master's degree in construction management in the UK before coming over and getting his PhD at the University of Florida, and was working on an actual airport project that really put him into the heart of digital twins. He is now an assistant professor at the University of Oklahoma in their construction management department. And my friends, you're in for a treat. We start off with a game show. We cover his sporting background. We clarify and simplify digital twins. You are going to enjoy this conversation as always. Thank you for listening. Dr. Kofi Asare, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bradley.
I'm really excited you're here. We're going to be talking about digital twins, and I'm glad you are, because I believe now, I think a little bit different than I did when we started talking, maybe a month or two ago. I knew digital twins were a thing, and after reading more of the literature, reading some of the stuff that you shared with me, I firmly believe this is the thing. This is where we are going, and I think this is where there's going to be this convergence of many of the things that we're going to talk about between sensors, the Internet of Things, AI, and a lot of the new innovation that's coming in construction, I believe, and I'm excited to talk to you just about how these are all going to converge to, I think, simplify a lot of our lives, and especially the ways that we operate and maintain, the built environment. So I'm really excited. I do believe digital twins, we have a marketing problem. Confusion is the enemy. I think we have a lot of folks, and some that I've talked to who are in the industry about this, they don't know exactly what it is. So would you be up, Dr. Kofi, for a small game where you get to grade a series of analogies or metaphors about what digital twins are or are not? Would you be willing to play the game?
Let's do it.
Okay.
You know what? You're spot on with the whole marketing bit. There's a huge marketing problem. There's a lot of products being sold as digital twins that are not. So let's get into this. But why don't we set a rubric before we go into that game? It's going to make it fun, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
so
yes, let's do it.
So let's use the National Academy of Sciences definition of a digital twin as the rubric.
Okay.
Right. So these are the people we look up to when it comes to sciences in this country, right?
Yep.
So they say a digital twin is a set of virtual constructs,
Okay.
right, that describe a physical entity in terms of its context, behavior, or its makeup. So that's the basic thing. But they add that what defines a digital twin or sets it apart from any other thing, it's that it has a bi-directional coordination between the physical and the virtual. So let's play this game. Ready to grade.
All right. Well, I love that. And I think that word bi-directional, and I've been reading lots of definitions. The idea of bi-directional to me made sense in that you have let's call it an airport. People are in the airport. There's temperature changes. There's people changes. There's weight changes. There are products and machinery in there that is aging. There is a constant flow back and forth of data about its performance to the digital twin that will then, right? So I think that was a big element of understanding for me between, I get the digitization thing, like, all right, that's a thing. And then it's a digitization, it's a representation of a physical thing, like, all right, this makes sense. And after that, all hell broke loose for me. So it took me a while. So, all right, you've set quite the professor, of course. You set the rubric. You mentioned the National Academy of Sciences, like, of course, I'm on their website, at least never. So here we are. So here's the first one. I want to go here. I want your tough grading, okay? So we're going to go a recipe versus a cooking show. So maybe we'll look at BIM. BIM might be building information modeling, might be like the recipe book. It's giving us the instructions, the ingredients, and steps needed to create it, but it's static, where a digital twin is more like a live cooking show. So if we're looking at BIM versus digital twin, how do you like that? How would you grade the recipe versus a cooking show?
Well, so on a scale of 0 to 10, I'll say 2.5.
All right.
I would say when we take construction, BIM is one of the ingredients, not the recipe. Right?
I like it.
So
okay,
if we're looking at a cooking show, you're looking at a meal. BIM is one of the ingredients that helps you to build a digital twin.
Okay.
So let's take BIM. What is BIM? Or what does a BIM model stand for?
Yep.
Right? You've got this digital version of a building or some facility somewhere. It contains all the information. So you take it like your tomato, right? You've got the tomato. It's got the nutrients that you need to give someone the sustenance that they require or the nutrition they need to keep going, right? So take BIM as one of the ingredients that helps you to build a digital twin. So 2.5 over 10.
All right. Well, I was going to say, if you like these, I came up with these on my own. If you didn't like them, I will say I leveraged my little AI friend, ChatGPT, to help me come up with these. And my ignorance is going to be pretty obvious throughout this whole thing, but I think that's helpful because one of my initial questions going in was, will digital twins, will they displace BIM? Are these competing innovations? And as you described, it's an ingredient. It's an ingredient. We can build upon that. It will be necessary. But to say, and correct me if I'm wrong here, if someone says, oh, digital twins, yeah, we do that. We've got a guy who does BIM. He's an expert and he digitizes, the physical asset that we're building. You, my friend, might say, I don't think so. That is just one ingredient in the stew, correct?
Correct. Absolutely spot on.
Cool. All right. How about this one? A map. So we have a detailed map, kind of a two-dimensional map versus GPS navigation that can kind of guide me along the way to send back information. A map versus GPS navigation. Is this a good metaphor or analogy within the digital twin conversation? And what score?
Already, you're inching up now. You're getting from a 2.5 to about a 5.
All right. Okay. All right.
Well, let's make it a 6. Well, I think this is a more realistic analogy, right? So if you take a map, right, a static map, it describes the geography or the location, right? But when you start adding your navigation system and you know where things are at each point in time, you are dynamically updating the location of the person. So the map gives you an idea of what it is. And if you put a dot on the map representing your current location, it's static, it's stuck in time, right? But when I build a GPS app that is able to track where I'm going, like your Google Maps or your Apple Maps, then you have sort of a digital twin of your movement within a particular location. So pretty close.
Okay. All right. I like that. Let's go. How about this one? I think this might be very similar, but we'll talk about it. If that was a 6.0, the map versus GPS navigation, how about this? A static photo. So like back in old school, I think you're a lot younger than I am, but back when I was growing up, you took photos, you sent them into like a Walgreens, you had to drive down there, you get to pick them up, and there'd be the big exciting reveal. I got a physical photo and I've got a live video feed. You like that one?
Oh, you've got it.
Okay.
You got it. I'll give you an A. and tell you what, I did that kind of photography way back, so I'm not that
you
young.
did? Okay, all right, well, good. Glad to hear it.
With all the negatives, you send it in and wait for a week or two and get it back.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so you are absolutely spot on with this one, right? When we finish a project and we hand over the BIM models to the owner or whoever is going to maintain that building, we've given them a snapshot in time of that facility's life cycle.
Yeah.
Right? We are looking way back to when we started planning to when we finished. But with the digital twin, we are monitoring what's happening to that facility in its real-time state for the rest of its lifetime. So it's like a live video feed of that asset for the rest of its life. So pretty spot on with this one. Strong A. 9.8.
Oh, you said A. I go, I don't know if you're switching, the rubric on me, or I got an 8. So a 9.8. All right. Then I think this is a natural place to stop. So I was trying to imagine, let me kind of paint this scenario for you. This will be I'm looking for you for one answer, and the answer is going to be a number. So in the future, we build a building. It's got a digital twin. There's bi-directional data about what is happening in its use, in its life cycle, temperature, airflow in the HVAC stuff, water, anything regarding plumbing, maybe warranty details on different aspects of the construction. So say we've got a digital twin. I get a beep that it appears that there is some sort of blockage in one of the HVAC ducts, and it is obvious that the temperature is changing, airflow is decreasing, something's going on there. It's near to the outside. Instantaneously, the digital twin will then send some sort of requisition to an HVAC contractor. They go up in there and they see that there is a small, friendly family of squirrels that have nested there. He's taking photos, he's talking out loud, and there's a transcription of what he's seeing. That's going directly into a report back to the manager. He's solving that problem. He's probably invoicing it right there. And that data about the change from before and after the squirrel family, that is now going back to the digital twin. And we are saying problem, solution. How far off is that? The one question is, or the answer I'm looking for, how far off in the future is that life cycle largely automated on one sort of problem and solution set?
Well, I'd say we are not too far off. Maybe 5 years down the line,
Okay.
we should have fully automated or fully autonomous systems that can help us do this. The research around this is growing exponentially. And we're going to talk about where we're going with this, but I think we are not too far off. 5 years, we should be able to do that. And
Cool.
people are already doing some aspects of that.
Well, let me ask you this. I think as salespeople, we define that we have a marketing problem, which is different than selling, but I'm always thinking like, what's the brand promise? What's the promise out there for someone to say, you like digital twins, my friend? Here's why. What's in it for them? If for people to say, I'm going to vision a future, and I do think this is one of these things right now that you'll give us some real-time examples of where this is happening, but it's the old William Gibson quote that the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed yet. Part of this is here. People are doing this, but I think from a cost standpoint and other details that you will share, it is not broad, but it will be. What's the promise of this? Why will digital twins transform the way we build and then even operate and maintain the built environment in the future?
Well, I think the promise really lies in the whole analytical aspects of it, right? We all talk about how digital twins can advance exponentially our predictive capabilities, right? So when you look at predictive maintenance and what it can do for a business, you're looking at saving between 8 to 40% of your maintenance costs. So that's a huge selling point. But where we are not too sure of right now is how much it takes to get all of that in place. So there are people who've done this and they are looking at close to $1 million just to set things up.
Okay.
$1 million just to set things up for an entire airport terminal. And it takes time for you to know the return on investment. And we are big on ROI in our industry, right? So, but I think that there's huge promise for this because if you know what's going to happen tomorrow, you can better prepare for it. And looking at 8 to 40%, that's a huge amount of money that you'll be saving that you can invest in other places in your business.
So when you talk about $1 million investment in an airport construction project, my guess is there's a combination of hardware, software, and smart human beings who know how to operate this. Are there costs beyond that, or is it largely contained within those three?
Well, so the $1 million I talked about was just the setting up of bringing the people together, bringing the software into the whole process. But it goes bigger than that, depending on the size of the project that you're doing. But I will not sit here and tell people it's a cheap exercise. It's not a cheap exercise because it has a lot of technology involved in there, and you need a lot of smart people with computing skills and all of that. So it's definitely an expensive exercise. But if you look at the long-term gain, it brings you some significant savings because that some research was done where it says for every dollar that you invest now, you're going to get a return on investment of about $6 after about 15 years. So that's quite significant, even though it's a long-term gain.
Yeah. And my initial thought, I would love to hear your thoughts, would be this is going to start on kind of these mega projects or these $100 million, $1 billion projects that they can absorb that cost and know that if I'm a municipality or a government or country or whatever, we're going to be paying for this thing for the next 50 years, hopefully longer. So we must think long term. Could the adoption be over time as the cost comes down? I do have a question about is quantum computing necessary to really help us get to the promised land? But it goes from $1 billion projects down to several $100 million projects. And on a long enough timeline, I don't know, 15, 20 years, it will now get down to residential projects where everyone is going to have a digital twin because we have sensors everywhere. We have Nest thermostats and the Internet of Things, and everything is just kind of connected. How do you view that? Am I right in thinking that? Or when you look at, say, the next 2 decades of this, what do you think the adoption is with different types of construction?
Well, I think there's a clear use case for the different types of construction. And for residential, there's even a much stronger case for it because we've got sensors all over the place now. And it all depends on the application that you want to use the digital twin for. for my residential building, I would not want to do advanced predictive maintenance or advanced predictive analytics, right? I want to know what's happening, what's going to happen, just a short-term forecast, right? I'm not bringing in, sending tickets out to hundreds of vendors every week. I'm not doing that. So the cost reduces for that, or there's a cost reduction on that. So it all depends on what you want to use a digital twin for. And that's one of the things a lot of people don't talk about. A digital twin by its design is motivated by the use case. So if I want to use a digital twin in my home, what do I want to use it for? Do I want to know what's happening in terms of my energy usage? Then the cost is not as much as you would have for, let's say, an entire university campus. It's completely different. And sensors are becoming cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
AI is becoming more democratized now. So the cost to implement this technology in other types of construction will significantly differ and will be probably lower for residential.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking about my own house and thinking about, okay, there's sensors up there. When is the last time I changed my air filter? I don't know. Probably not recent enough. When I go in the attic, I just change it every time. So I don't know, a couple times a year, you put sensors there, it automatically just triggers a purchase from Amazon. Amazon drops off air filters. It's also connected to like some guy who's working at Fiverr or whatever, TaskRabbit, and he knocks on my door and says, I'm here to change your air filter. And I feel terrible about myself and lazy, but also just a little bit wonderful because like this house, right, is, and this might be a little too far, but one of the things I kept on writing down is what we're talking about is a digital twin will help you as a human in this space, make it come alive, and there's communication on what's happening and how it can be more efficient and, give you a heads up when, your air filter is turned into a piece of plywood and it's restricting airflow and it's going to blow out your unit. So Are you saying, hey, Bradley, yeah, that's good. That's the future, but take it easy because we're not there yet? Or when I describe that of like thinking about my day-to-day life, how does that resonate with you, if at all?
Well, it's something that has been done and can be done.
Yeah.
So during COVID, one gentleman built a digital twin of his home and he was able to see what's happening with his movement in the house, whether he's leaving lights on when he's not in the room. So things like that can be done. It's when you take it to the next level where you connect it to these third-party vendors and all of that, that is pretty much beyond what is being done for residential applications right now. But the technology exists. It's something that can be done. It's not just available on a large scale, or it's not market ready. Someone is not selling a market ready solution for this, but it's certainly something that can be done.
Yeah. Kofi, I'm wondering if you can walk me through, along with our audience, these 5 levels of basically different states or advancements of digital twins. And maybe, I think it might be helpful for me to understand it. I think it might be helpful to work from the most advanced version of the future down to the most simplistic. Because when I went the other way, I don't know. I didn't have the mental firepower to keep up with this whole thing. I'm like, all right, but if I start with the future and say, okay, this makes sense, and then we're removing things. So the 5th, the highest level of a digital twin here would be an autonomous twin, and it has the ability to learn and act on behalf of its users. What does that mean to you? Can you explain that maybe in layman's terms?
All right. So we as human beings have this superpower, right? We have cognitive abilities. We're able to learn. So today I go to school, I learn 1 + 1 is equal to this. Then tomorrow I see 2 + 2 and I'm able to transfer that learning, right? I'm able to transfer my textual literacy to writing long pieces of English or long pieces of essays. All right. So that's what a cognitive or an autonomous digital twin is supposed to do. We're saying that it should be able to learn from all the data that's coming into it and say, okay, the last time this happened, this was the solution. So the next time something is happening, how do I transfer that learning I did to that emergent scenario? That's what that digital twin is supposed to do. So with very little human input, it will be able to make decisions. So it goes back to what you said earlier, one of the scenarios you painted earlier, where you have someone go up into the attic, they see that, oh, some squirrels have made their nest over there and are having a ball. And this time around, the digital twin can envisage all of that and say, okay, wait, that's what happened last time. So we have this reading coming in from this HVAC system.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the readings that are coming, it's very similar to what happened there at a time. Can I take the same decision? So maybe I need to shut off this valve. That's a cognitive autonomous digital twin. It's acting with little or no human intervention.
Yeah. And as soon as I saw autonomous twin at level 5 here, I was thinking, okay, what's a hospital, airport, residential home version of an autonomous vehicle? That thing is sensors everywhere, making right decisions and thinking about all that. So is that be a decent analogy with our rubric?
A self-managing building.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Self-managing. Okay. I like that. Have you ever seen, if you say yes, I'm not sure if I'll think more or less of you. It was a movie made by Disney, I think in like 2000. It's called Smart House, and it starred Katie Sagal from the mom from Married with Children. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm the worst person to talk about movies with.
Well, this is good because this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. But basically, there is a self-managing autonomous digital twin in a home. And then, of course, because we're going to have to talk about the singularity sooner or later, the house comes alive and it takes over, and then they have to battle the house.
Ben Cooper has won a computerized smart house for his family.
Way to go, Cooper!
Complete with video wall projections, a state-of-the-art control room, floor absorbers, and maternal instincts. But when Ben needs more of a mother's touch...
You watch, I have this feeling that before you know it, she's going to be more motherly than all the moms on the block combined.
He hits the mother load when his wish is virtually granted.
You're alive!
It's terrible. I wouldn't recommend you watching it, but when I saw autonomous twin and was thinking about residential, that's where my mind went. So
yeah, and that's one of the fears that I personally have about where we're going with this, right? We need to train this on the right data. So with let's say ChatGPT, sometimes you ask it something and it gives you these answers, and we call it hallucination. Mm-hmm. So imagine you have a self-managed building with all these intelligent modules working, and it starts hallucinating. And for example, it's pumping in so much outdoor air when you don't need so much outdoor air into an interior space. That's a problem. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of scientific research that's going on around this kind of digital twin right now.
Yeah. No, what I was picturing was like a hallucination I often have with my own children here in Texas when for some odd reason it gets like cold, but my son is warm in his room. So he turns on the air conditioner in the middle of January when it's like 40 degrees outside, thinking, I'm like, imagine if a whole building did that and it was autonomous. We could have some catastrophic responses to that. So that actually makes a ton of sense. Cool. Let's go to level 4. So down from autonomous, self-managing is comprehensive twin, a simulation for future what-if scenarios. What does that mean?
Yes. So one of the things that you can do with a digital twin is to do scenario planning. So there are so many things that we cannot test in real life, right? So for example, we cannot send someone onto the deep seas all the time to be doing some sort of analysis. Mm-hmm. So what this twin does is you assemble a lot of data, high fidelity data, and you build all of these physical models of the behavior of whatever you're studying. And you combine that with real-time data. So you have sensors that are collecting the data from the building. Mm-hmm. You have all this historical data that you've built over the years, and you're using that to test what will happen if certain conditions were present or if certain conditions were absent. So that's what it does. So it gives you a comprehensive ability to test the impact of different conditions or different constructs on a particular facility or building or system. So that's what it does. And that's why we call it a comprehensive twin or a simulation twin.
Okay. And I think you answered part of that. My next question here. Level 3 was a predictive twin. So leverage operational data for new insights.
Yeah. So you step back one step back, one step lower, and here you are capturing real-time data. So we've talked about sensors a lot of time in this podcast so far. And so let's say you are collecting the temperature readings from your son's room. You know what's happening. But what if we paired it with outdoor temperature? And we could tell, okay, in the next 2 hours, maybe you need to turn your thermostat from 40 degrees to 50 degrees because the weather is going to change. What if we said, okay, you're going to be away for summer.
Mm-hmm.
So based on the temperatures that we are anticipating for summer, we want you to leave your thermostat not on 78, but on 72. So these are predictions that are enabled by a combination of real-time data that's coming in and fit for purpose algorithms that we build to be able to predict. Another use case could be, okay, let's go back to the HVAC system, one of my favorites. So we have all the operational data from an HVAC system over the past, let's say, 6 months. We know when there have been downtimes. We cannot predict based on the data that's coming in that, okay, wait, you could have a failure in the next 2 weeks based on the trend of the data that's coming in. So maybe you need to start procuring filters or you need to procure new valves. That's what this can tell you.
That's okay. I hadn't really thought deeply about the procurement side, but especially with some of the supply chain disruptions we've had, and I think we've all become a little bit or a lot more intelligent about understanding global supply chains and construction since the pandemic. So I hadn't thought about that, but that's very helpful. Back one, level 2. So we're going down from predictive, no more predictive, but we just have informative twin, additional operational and sensory data.
Yeah. So another name for this is status, right?
Okay.
When we say status, current state of something.
Yep.
So here, it's basically relying on just real-time sensor data. We are not thinking of historical data. We are not thinking of any data that's coming from the past. We just want to know what's happening right now. And that's what happens in most of the cars that we drive right now, right? It's just like the gauges on your car's dashboard.
Okay.
You know how much fuel you have, the temperature of your engine oil, all of that right now in the current period. So that's what an informative or a status twin does. It gives you operational insights into your facility at any given time.
Okay. And level 1 would be, all right, I'm building the airport. Kofi, you're going to be my consultant. You're going to direct me on how we do this, but I want the bare minimum awesomeness that comes with a digital twin. What do I get here? It's called a descriptive twin, live editable version, which you're going to have to walk me through that a little bit. Live editable version of design and construction data. What does that mean?
Yes. And that's where the confusion with BIM often comes in.
That's right.
Yeah. So let's look at another word for the descriptive twin. It's an existence twin.
Okay.
Right. So it's a visual replica of whatever physical object we are looking at. That gives me an idea of the core information. So what is it? Where is it? What other information describes that? So I've got a red building, right? Where's the building located? Okay, it's in Dallas, Texas. What's the color of the building? It's red. What's the shape of the building? Well, it's a big rectangular block, right? What's the square footage? Oh, it's 10,000 square feet. That's an existence twin. But what differentiates it from a regular BIM model is it's editable. So if I update my BIM model over time, let's say I've got a regular update where I'm updating it almost every day, it could qualify as an existence digital twin because there's that feedback where I am given an update of what's happening from the physical to the digital almost every day or at a specified interval. So
awesome.
That's what an existence or a descriptive twin is.
Okay. All right. This is very helpful. I want to jerk the wheel off the road. I'm going to go backwards in time. You have an extremely interesting background, and good thing we reserved another 4 hours for this conversation because we're just dipping into the details here. You grew up in Ghana. Can you tell me and tell our audience, what was it like? What was your childhood like growing up in Ghana? And when did you know you had an interest in, I'll say, construction in general, architecture, et cetera?
Well, so growing up in Ghana was fun. Going outside, playing all over the place, playing what we call football, what's called soccer here.
That's right.
Yeah, but it was a pretty exciting childhood. I was that child who loved outdoors as much as indoors. Didn't grow up on video games, even though I had a video game at some point.
Okay.
But I'll spend my time playing outside with my friends. I spend a lot of time in the library, which was what got me into a lot of reading. So through this reading, I started gaining an interest in writing, and I'll write columns or short stories and send them to these newspapers, kids' newspapers, and I'll write beautiful essays here and there. So my English teachers really liked me.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
So based on that, there was this outreach program by our national broadcaster, which is the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, where they wanted to train young people. And I got selected to be one of those lucky young people to be trained in broadcasting. So that's my childhood.
So, yeah, because I saw this. I saw Love FM sports broadcast journalism for 6 years. I'm like, you're not 55 years old. How'd you do this? And you said, well, I did this when I was very young. So what journalism and broadcasting were you doing with sports? Was it football, AKA soccer?
Yeah. So let me go a few years back.
Sure.
So still after this broadcasting training, they looked at us and said, wait, the way you talk, you need to do sports. So I started reading sports news on a kids talk show on the weekends. Then I took a break, went to high school, took a break. And when I went to uni, I would listen to all these sports shows. I'm like, nah, I can contribute to whatever they are doing. I think I can do a good job. So I walked to this. I was doing my internship in an architectural firm, and I called them after one of the shows and I said, hey, can I come in and talk to you about possibly joining your show? So I walked to this radio station, which was just about 5 miles from my university and about a mile from where I worked for my internship. And I spoke to the host and he said, okay, come in. So I went in as a production assistant for a few weeks. Then one day someone doesn't show up and they're like, can you step in? I said, I've been waiting for this.
Yes.
And I never looked back. Did talk shows. Then before I knew, I was calling games, what we call announcing here. So I was a commentator for our local national soccer league. Then I'll do African Cup of Nations. I'll do World Cup games. So we'll get the broadcast rights from the BBC or from somewhere. Then I'll be the one calling the games for my local broadcaster. So it was pretty fun.
Oh, it sounds amazing. Does this exist? Is there video of you, audio of you somewhere on the internet? There's got to be a gold mine of early version Kofi doing this. It sounds great.
I think when you go to my Twitter or my X account, you'd see some stuff there. But hey, I think I've still got a few clips. And I've got some photos as well of me doing all of that.
So walk us through. So you're doing this soccer broadcasting by the World Cup games and the African League. I'm sure you're having the time of your life. Meanwhile, you have this passion for construction. You end up in the UK to study. You end up in Florida. Give us the brief version of how you went kind of around the world and ended up, obviously, in Norman, Oklahoma.
Well, ended up in Norman, Oklahoma. Yeah, so I was doing all this. I would occasionally get assigned to go do some golf reporting, do some tennis reporting, and all of these people would tell me, hey, you sound really smart. Do you have plans of going back to school? And my professors back in architecture school will always tell me, hey, you love teaching, you need to go get a PhD or something like that. So I said, okay, I've fallen in love with building what I design. So why don't I switch to construction management? So I went to the UK, got sponsored to go and do a master's there. Then that's when I fell in love with BIM. So first class of uni in the UK, they talk about how you do collaboration. This is a funny story. Talk about how you do collaboration with your project team members, your experience. And I step up, I raise my hand, it gets to my 10 and I say, oh, we have a WhatsApp group where we share drawings and we get updates. And they're like, have you heard about something called BIM? And I said, I have, but I haven't gone into it. And I start digging so much into BIM. I spend hours in the library and I become this BIM nerd. And I finish, I get a very good dissertation, I get it published, then I get a call and say, okay, I got a PhD to continue back there in the UK at Loughborough, but I got this call and said, well, my former supervisor is looking for a student to help on a project that he's working on at an airport in the US. And I think you have the skill set. So I was in the US at that time, but on just a tourist visit. I was here just to visit Falling Water, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright.
Sure.
Because that's my favorite building of all time.
Oh, yeah.
So I have an interview not planned for, and I get admitted to the University of Florida. Go there, crash it, 1 to 4 years, finish, and I get a job here to come teach construction science in Norman, Oklahoma.
Well, that's funny, but I think what you lived through, the vast majority of our industry is living through now, when we have a problem, we know a little bit about the future, we know a little bit about maybe a technology that we're using in our personal life, and we think, how do we use this over here? And you're just pulling together a WhatsApp group to share documents. This is a large part of how we operate. We just can change the names from, WhatsApp to just something else. But I think that's a lot of how our industry operates, which I think brings us back to kind of where we started is we know we have these challenges. And I'm going to read a line from the paper you wrote. Construction is one of the least digitized industries. A significant effort must therefore be made to ensure the construction industry leverages emerging technologies in the same way as other industry sectors like manufacturing and automotive. The construction industry has employed traditional construction tools and methods which seem to have worked over the past decades. I feel like that's our industry. We're like, I don't know, hammer, nail, worked pretty good for my grandfather. Why doesn't it work today? And this slow adoption to technology, maybe bring us now to the present. Talk to me about some of the conversations you've had with construction leaders that say, I see the vision, I see where we are today, I see some of the pain points and the challenges and the costs long-term from not really having buildings and places where we work and live and all this stuff that are really sharing enough information given what is possible. How are the leading leaders in our industry thinking about digital twins, and what do these conversations look like with you on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I think that light bulb is beginning to go on for a lot of people.
Okay.
So I talked about this project that we did back at Florida where it was an airport. I'm not going to mention the airport, but for those who know me, they will know which airport I'm talking about.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
So we're brought on to help them digitize the entire process from planning through handover. And initially, you could see some resistance. But when we're able to demonstrate the amount of time it saves, and time is money. Every minute you save is possibly $1 or $2. And bringing all of that value where, for example, there was this classic case where there was this work to be done and they were estimating about 2 months to do it. And we did it in a week and we sat on it and turned it in 2 weeks just to give them some comfort. And they were like, oh, how did you do that? There are only 4 of you. And I think that's one of the moments I always refer to as that light bulb moment when people realize that, hey, technology is not an enemy. It's a tool. It's just like our hammer. It's just like our tape measure, right? That we use on a daily basis. It can help us get to where we need to be. And those are the sort of conversations that I'm beginning to have a lot more now. Previously, you'd go in and people would be like, I don't want to have anything to do with that. But when you start showing them the value, I always talk about utility benefit. Is this something that the people can use? What sort of skill gap is there? If we approach these in more of a systematic way, not trying to flip the switch in just a moment, because that's one of the problems. People go in and they try to change things with just the click of a button. They want to turn around by tomorrow. No, it's a people, process, technology thing. Deal with the people, get them to have a mindset shift, then introduce the processes gradually. Then you bring in the technology. But if you go in and say, I have this technology, it's just another shiny tool. He's going to go back to his tape measure. He's going to pull it, measure. He's not going to go around with a 360 camera stuck on his helmet, scanning things around. No.
Yeah. I think that's so powerful. And this idea of, hey, let's focus on the people first. What is the process to move them from here to there? And then what tools can help us get there? Once we're all excited about the brighter future, this is a human nature story, right? You could have told the same thing 1,000 years ago and it would have applied just the same in Roman times or whatever, which is people are going to have a resistance to change. And if we're not really clear on what problem are we trying to solve, and I wrote down twice, you keep saying use case. What's the use case, right? What are we talking about? But I just think the technology, more than likely, it'd be my guess, is going to get there faster at a lower price point than the human nature's willingness to change and think differently about how we do stuff. But the minute you start saying, here's the pain we can take away, and how many of you have had a situation where, well, we knew about after 5 years, this thing in the building would fail. We wait for it to fail. We have a huge mess to clean up. It's super expensive. And then we go and we solve it and we just do that again. I'm like, well, hey, if we can get more predictive data and there's a digital twin that will be constantly monitoring and giving us information, that to me is extremely exciting. So maybe let's wrap up here because I think you've done a really excellent job explaining this. And I feel like I definitely moved from totally clueless to mildly knowledgeable on this, but maybe what would you like to leave our audience with as they think about digital twins moving forward? What is something they can do moving forward, whether they're in commercial construction or heavy highway or residential or remodel, or maybe suppliers of materials to those builders? What is something you would like to leave them with to have them thinking deeper or increase their curiosity about digital twins in general?
Well, so it's the same thing about the people, process, technology that I want to re-echo. Let's always look at digital twin as an enabler of our decision making. Let's not look at it as a hammer that we can go around and hit every nail we see. Right? There's a lot of products going around being marketed as digital twins right now. Be careful what you spend your money on.
Okay.
Always think about, what problem do I have that I need support in terms of decision making? Once you figure out that problem, you will know whether a digital twin applies to it. Even though I love digital twins, I don't want it sprayed all over the place in the wrong places because it's going to give it a bad name and we can no longer get funded to do research on digital twins. So we want people applying digital twins to the right, again, using the same word, use cases. So think about what you spend the money on. Again, think about, what problems do I have? What kind of digital twin, or is the digital twin the best tool to use? What people do I need and what processes do I need to have in place? So for example, if I'm into procurement, how will a digital twin help me? Think about that deeply, reflect on it, and build your use case around that.
Yeah, well, I think what you just did there was in the very subtle way of saying, the verb spray is great. Spray it all over the place and nobody likes it. You do not get any more funding for research. And I think it all goes back to this personal self-interest, which is what you just said there. How could, in theory, this help me if I was in procurement? Okay. If I was a superintendent and I'm coming in, at this stage of construction versus MEP, how in theory could this help me? And I think once we start thinking about this, that'll better prepare us, make us more ready to when it is more widespread, that, okay, hey, I think I can add a unique perspective because I've thought about it. And I just, I don't know. If I had to guess, I'm trying to make more predictions only because most of them will be wildly wrong. But I was thinking less than 20 years, more than 15. I think the idea that we would build something and part of the value we would provide beyond the product itself would be the service that we deliver to the owner, and we can give them all this information. Not only say, when we give you this living thing that's connected to, what you've got here in the city block, this is going to help you be smarter and save money and know what you've got. I just think in the future, remodelers to residential buildings to, whatever, tiny houses. I think all of these are going to have some digital twin. So I don't know. I don't know if you have any thought on that. Am I wildly optimistic? But that's where my mind goes.
You're not wrong. There's millions of pounds being spent in the UK on researching into a national digital twin. So there's that idea. When you have a lot of connected infrastructure and facilities and buildings, you can learn so much, right? We can know what's happening at a larger scale in terms of energy consumption. That can help us make better decisions into achieving net zero, not just on a building level, but on a city level or even on a regional level. So it's something that is the goal for all of this. We are not looking at building disconnected smart entities. We are looking at building an interconnected smart world where we can make decisions that impact everything at a larger scale and not just on one unit. So that's where this is all going. We want to learn from individual units because, hey, if you look at homes in isolation, what if you're saving energy in 2 homes and the rest of the homes are just blowing up all the energy? Right. It doesn't help in any way. So that's a very good vision. And it's not a vision that is isolated. It makes a lot of sense. And a lot of people are looking at this too. So you're a visionary, Bradley.
Hey, if that's all it means to be visionary, I got lots of visions. No problem there. But hey, Dr. Kofi Asare, I appreciate you making time. And this, for me, is just really exciting because I got to learn a lot about something I knew nothing about. And I think for our audience this is going to be a buzzword that more and more people use. And I think the minute you start talking about sensors and Internet of Things and AI and machine learning and digital twins, sometimes, dude, just the noise just slows us from making actual progress and saying like, what the hell are we talking about? So I think you've really articulated it well and simplified it for me. I want to thank you for that. Welcome to Norman. I'm glad you're there. I'm looking to get up. I'm going to head up I-35 here before too long, and I'm excited to meet you in person, but thank you for making time.
Thank you for having me, Bradley. And anytime you're in Norman, come over. Let's talk about digital twins.
I'm in. We'll do it. All right then, friends. How did that go? Hopefully I did not overpromise and underdeliver. I really enjoyed my conversation with Dr. Kofi. I will direct you to this PDF that I found that was published by Autodesk. There is an underlying theme of obviously any future of digital twins will run through Autodesk, and that may or may not be true. But they had a PDF that we're going to put in the show notes that really simplified for me, and I thought they did a really nice job. And it seems like Autodesk said, hey, Bradley, I know you're simple-minded. You need small words and small sentences, and you need some graphics to go along with it. Here you go, my friend. It's simple. It's easy. Here's the 5 levels. Here's some use cases. It was really helpful for me to really fast forward my understanding to make sure I wasn't a total jackass when I spoke to Dr. Kofi. So if you were to Google Digital Twins Autodesk PDF, I think it would come right up. We'll also include a link in the show notes, but that's really going to help you understand what is coming in the future. And obviously this is here now, but just on really giant, I think mostly governmental projects and $1 billion projects. So, but I firmly believe it's going to be everywhere soon. So you're going to hear more of this. So hopefully this helped. I'm going to quit rambling. All right then, friends, that's it. I'm done here. If you did enjoy this and you want to take a small step that would make me personally happy as we try to grow our audience organically from people in our industry who enjoy what we're doing, leave us a quick review on whatever podcast player you are using. That would mean a world of difference and help us grow. So I'd say thank you. Other than that, I will say this, my friend. You are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.